All right, 9:08. A lot more coming up, open phones. And later on in the hour, I'll have some snippets. Interesting stuff from the Supreme Court oral arguments yesterday regarding whether or not Colorado or any other state has the right to pull Donald Trump off the ballot. Interesting stuff to hear the Supreme Court justices go back and forth with the attorneys, including Neil Gorsuch, dropping the hammer on one of the attorneys who used to be one of his law clerks. That's kind of interesting. Right now, though, we welcome to the phones here on WICC. Bill Leavitt, founder and principal advisor, Bridgelight Financial Advisors. Bill, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great.
Excellent. Good to have you here. We're talking inflation here, Bill, and let's start this off. Inflation in retirement. Talk a little about that and big fear. How do we deal with that?
Well, I think one of the things that many people don't consider when they're doing retirement planning, especially getting into retirement, is the real impact of inflation on their money. And as you may know, in the last year, we've seen a very significant increase in the inflation rate to the point where it got to over 9%. Now, inflation has certainly dropped down. According to the federal government, the consumer price index is running at about 3.3%. But that said, retirees and people who are approaching retirement need to take inflation very seriously.
So on the pantheon or the level, Bill Leavitt, of how serious it is, where does it fall in relation to how much cash can I pull out, cash income, how flexible will I be? Where does the concern about inflation fall in that mix? Where should it be considered?
Well, definitely it should be considered on income. When one is planning for retirement and they are projecting out how much income they're going to get, it could be from pensions or Social Security, portfolio income, they must realize that over time that the impact of inflation will reduce the value of that money in terms of what their lifestyle is and what their expenses are. And I think that many times people don't pay attention to that. One of the things that we do, and we're putting together good planning for the families that we give guidance to, is we focus on those two areas, inflation on their retirement savings, but also, importantly, just like I pointed out, the impact of inflation on their income sources.
What level of concern, Bill Leavitt, should people have? In other words, and you mentioned this a couple of seconds ago, they see inflation going up and then going down and then up and down, and the Fed does all these adjustments, and people now are deluged with all these indicators. But where should their level of overall concern be?
Well, I think that in this particular environment right now, we have seen the inflation rate go up to a level that we haven't seen since the 70s. It's largely due to the loose money policy of the federal government and overspending. And, the Federal Reserve had to raise interest rates at an unprecedented rate to deal with the inflation that we saw over last year. And that significantly had an impact on consumers, as you may know. And so I think it's an eye-opening for those who are planning in the retirement phase to really take it seriously and do the planning necessary to mitigate the impact of it over time.
And, Bill, according to the financial people and even the college-level professors I've talked to about this, once inflation gets up there, it can be really difficult to not just come down, but just to cool off and level off, right?
That's very true. Sometimes they have the inability to control the real impact of inflation over time. And we're going to continue to see inflation. I mean, inflation is part of the world that we live in. It's something that is ongoing and continuing. And I think that people need to really realize that they have to understand the impact in the long term, because here's the thing. The average person lives approximately 18 years during the retirement phase of their life. And so, the average person, right now, if you will, depending on a male or a female, lives into their 80s. Mm-hmm. Now, that can extend out even farther. We know that people are living a lot longer now with the advancement in medicine and technology. And to kind of give you an example, to take you back to my family experience.
Sure.
My grandmother retired when she was 60, and she passed away when she was 99.
Wow! God bless her.
That's 39 years in retirement.
2 generations. That's amazing.
Yes, and so it just shows you how long people are living and the impact of erosion of their money over time. And so they must, take it seriously. They must take it into an account and do really good planning to address it.
Okay, so you sit down with a prospective client, and you discuss with the client everything, including inflation. How do you prepare with a prospective client, Bill, to deal with that? Some of the points that you look at to try and keep that under control.
Understood. And so one of the things that we do is the first thing we do is we project out income in retirement. What are their income sources? Where are they coming from? And are those income sources inflation adjusted income sources? If they're getting a pension, is it going to increase every single year with inflation? Is it going to be a cost of living increase, or is it going to stay stagnant? What's the projection and possibility of Social Security increasing? And as we know, Social Security does go up based upon some criteria, but Medicare premiums increase too, so they kind of take that away. So we want to take a look at those and certainly incorporate that into their planning and give them a forward look at what that is going to be like in comparison to what their expenses are. So if their expenses are outpacing that increase in income over time, well, they may need to do some adjustment on their expenses. There may be some other areas in terms of reducing taxation. And then we talk a lot about taxation that can, instead of giving a lot of money to the government, if you gave less, you have more money to be able to live on, and that can help mitigate inflation. So there's a bunch of ways that we look at that to help people figure it out and make sure that they're going to stay on a good track. And in a sense, they're not going to outlive their money or be concerned at some time in the future that they're not going to have enough to live on. All
right, Bill Leavitt. Bill, if folks want to get a hold of you at Bridgelight Financial, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can go up to our website and access that way. It's bridgelightadvisors.com, or they can contact us directly at our office, 203-795-7080.
All right, Bill Leavitt, founder, principal advisor at Bridgelight Financial Advisors. Bill, good to chat with you. We'll chat down the road. Thank you, sir.
Good talking with you. Thanks for having me today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Bill. Bill Leavitt, founder and principal advisor, Bridgelight Financial Advisors. All right, yeah. How about that? His grandmother retired at 60 and lived till 99. Yikes. But, that's good. Imagine that. But you don't have a lot of people retiring. I remember years ago, he just retired. She just retired. They're 62, 65, and more people are working longer because they need the money, and B, it keeps them going. That's amazing to retire. So you've lived 3 generations, 20, 40, 60, if you use the common recognized thing that a generation is 20 years. So you've lived 3 generations, then a retirement, you see another 2 more go by. Wild stuff.